was made to law enforcement at approximately 8:15 this morning regarding a crash. Sometimes it takes law enforcement quite a bit of time in order to get to a place where there is a crash scene, and oftentimes they don't even know that there's a crash that existed. Usually a passerby is the one that ends up finding it. In our rural roads here in Fillmore County, it's very rare that we get to somebody in less than a half an hour time. The magic window of time to get to somebody for response in order to save their life is usually an hour. If we don't get them to the hospital in an hour, their outcome is usually not very good. It's been approximately 7 minutes since law enforcement was first called. In Fillmore County, approximately 1 to 4 fatal crashes happen every year. Most of the time those happen because someone drives off of the road. Oftentimes that's attributed to distracted driving, speeding, drinking and driving, and 50% of the people who don't wear seatbelts usually become a fatality. We have on scene the Fillmore County Sheriff Department and also the Lanesboro Preston Police Department. Responding is Deputy Lance Boyam, and assisting is Jesse Grabo. So the job of law enforcement is to assess the initial damage. They're usually one of the first ones to arrive along with the fire department, and then following usually the ambulance. So here what they're doing right now is checking over the car, checking over the scene, make sure it's safe for them to do their job, checking on the people that are inside the car, and looking over the whole entire scene to determine what has happened. Here are additional sirens. That means the ambulance is now to follow. It's now been approximately 10 minutes since the original call was made to 911 regarding the crash. The ambulance responsibility is to ensure the safety and health and well-being of those that were involved in the crash. The fire department comes along as a way to stabilize the car, to cut anyone out of the car, to make sure that there's not a fire or an additional safety hazard. All of them take their jobs very seriously, and we have to commend them because most of them are volunteer. None of them get paid to do this. They just do it to make sure that everyone here is safe. The victim that's over by the phone pole is Lanesboro. Linnea struck the phone pole. She was ejected from the vehicle due to the fact that she was not wearing a seatbelt. Right now, ambulance is working towards trying to get a neck collar on her to make sure that she's stable. We'll also put her on a backboard and eventually get her into the ambulance and take her for additional treatment. Over at the car, right now you see law enforcement determining what needs to be done. They're also putting a neck collar on the folks in the car. Jaws of life, which is going to be very loud, to come off the door so that they can get the victims out of the car. It's not unusual in a small rural community to have someone else notify their family and friends if someone's been in a crash. It's not unreasonable to have them show up to the scene. They would be very upset, and it'd be a very difficult experience for them. Sometimes this involves putting in additional wood or posts or something to stabilize the car so it doesn't tip over anymore. You see one of the fire department has a set of orange wedges in their hand to help stabilize the car as they cut it. If you notice over to your right, you see a lot of cars coming. Again, that's not uncommon for that to happen during a crash scene. The most important thing you can do if you come across a crash is immediately send 911. If there's two of you in the car, have one person stay with the car, make sure that people are comfortable, and as best as you can help them. Try not to move people if you don't have the training to do so. Just keep them where they are. If you move them, you can cause additional harm. Notice Eric has exited the car. Law enforcement are attending to him. He's able to move. He does have injuries, scratches, bruises from the seatbelt he was wearing. Law enforcement is going to be asking him some questions about what happened with the crash. They may also conduct a field sobriety test on Eric to see if he was using any alcohol. At this point it's 9:30, so 15 minutes approximately since the crash. Notice that no one has been in an ambulance. There's no helicopter here at this point to transport anybody away, because all of this takes very precious time. There's still one participant, one victim in the car. Deputy Boyam is saying that we're missing a person because the person in the car has indicated that someone is missing, that there's 4 people total. common in a crash where people are not wearing their seatbelts to end up going through a window and flying several feet. In addition to the fact that it's a rollover, which means they may have rolled several times, the person could have been projected from the car and the car could have kept moving. Notice that they've caught the additional participant was in the vehicle over on the far left. Sydney struck the pole, partial pole that's there, and fire and law enforcement are assessing her injuries. To your right, notice Eric is trying to perform a field sobriety test as directed by Tessie Bradley. Parents are arriving on scene. We have Linnеa's mom and Sydney's mom. Deputy Boyan has stopped Sydney's mom from coming any closer to her body at this point because she's deceased. They're ready to transport Linnea. Her injuries are very severe. She has a spinal cord and back injury in which the bones have been exposed. She's asking for everybody else to see if they're okay. One of the hardest things for law enforcement to do is to have to tell someone that their loved one has died, for whatever reason that might be. And particularly difficult, even more so when it's a young teenager with a very vibrant future in life ahead of them. So what will happen with Sydney, typically what occurs is that the county coroner comes, pronounces the body dead, person deceased. That person is then transferred to Mayo Hospital, and they do an examination to determine their cause of death. And from that point, they're transferred to the local funeral home or funeral service that will help the family grieve for their loved one. Linnea is being loaded into the ambulance. See the fourth person coming out of the car. It's Johanna. Johanna has a fractured arm. Her left arm is fractured, exposed bone. So she also will need to have medical attention and go to the hospital. You see here on the right that Eric is being arrested. One of the rational reasons for Eric being arrested is because he violated the law. That could be alcohol consumption. It could be also that he may be put into custody for excessive speed. It's a pretty rare occurrence. Maybe he was texting and driving. The law enforcement will detain him to try to figure out some additional information. In this case, what we know is that Eric was consuming alcohol. You see that they're collecting Sydney's personal belongings. Her shoes, and kind of clothing that would have came upon the scene. First, though, this would also be documented by law enforcement. They would take pictures, so you see a basketball or some other team shoes. And if they get the scene, they'll pick up the same way if they take pictures to try to determine what caused the crash. to the extent of the injuries that Linnea has, and also that Johanna has, they will more than likely be transported, or could often be transported by Mail 1 or Gunderson Lutheran's system if they're available. Excuse what I'm saying for that. What happened to Eric is he will get taken to the Fillmore County Jail. There he will be tested for his alcohol use. He'll be asked lots of questions, interrogated about what happened, why it happened, time, date, details, the reason for, the cause of his crash. As Joanna is able, she will also be able to fill in the gaps, and so will Linnea. Eric will be put in jail for a period of time. Have to make court appearances, which we will witness later today. The reason that alcohol is so deadly is not a good combination. It's because it affects your ability to be coordinated, it affects your vision, it affects your judgment, it also affects your memory, your reaction time, and your motor skills. That's why alcohol is not a good combination in conjunction with driving, and many other behaviors too. It is illegal for any minor to consume alcohol. A minor is a person that's 18 years of age, or 21 years of age or younger, with regard to alcohol consumption. You can have no drop of alcohol. It's not permitted whatsoever. Also, the second rule is if you are of age, if you are 21 years of age and older, the allowable amount of alcohol that you can have legally is 0.08. That blood alcohol level is the point in which you can seek jail time, penalties, insurance hikes, and if you happen to kill someone, the fine is very great. It's anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. That's just the fees assessed by the court. It does not include additional costs, emotional toll, and social implications related to a crash. Law enforcement has just requested Mail 1 for support. To come transport Linnea. It'll take about 15 minutes for them to get here. Maybe more, maybe less, depending on where they are. They might not be able to come along. It might be that the local ambulance service would have to transport Linnea to a specific destination where they can meet them that will be closer. And if the weather is bad, Mail 1 is not always able to land. And Gunderson also offers support to our county. So between one of the two ambulance med services, the flight services, are able to help get patients to the hospital faster so that the ambulance crews don't have to drive all the way there, losing that additional time with that golden hour. Additionally, it's really important to note that teenagers have specific rules for Mail 1's not able to come. They must be out on another call. Mail 1 got called to another call. So with that, the ambulance will have to drive Linnea and Johanna to the hospital. Parents will often follow, as well. In addition, what happens with the vehicle is the vehicle ends up being used as evidence. Law enforcement will take pictures, document what has occurred. After that, it'll be hauled to a local salvage yard. And now you see the fire department is removing some of their equipment that they put in earlier in order to make sure that the crowd is safe. The time is now about a half an hour after the original crash. Time it takes to deliver into the hospital in the weeks, months, sometimes years of recovery. And amidst all of that becomes the legal systems involved in role in the process as well. What you note is that sometimes takes a very long time. So it's like the additional reminder of what a family has to go through over and over again. First is the crash, the funeral, the healing, the therapy. Then you have to go back into court and relive that eventful day all over again. You have to repeat everything that you learned, all the sorrows, all the struggles that you've had to go through. Usually for something that could have very easily have been prevented. A text that says, "What's up? How you doing? I'll be there in 5 minutes," is probably really not worth losing a life. Being in the hospital for a long period of time. Having a life-changing, altering experience. Especially when you're willing to go to college. Someday you may want to be married, have children. It makes your life so much more difficult than it has to be. To do your best to control what you can control when you drive. go out to the field to meet them. And Linnea and Johanna will be loaded and taken as needed. One may go in the helicopter, one may be transported still by ambulance. And again, this is all about 45 minutes from the original time that the call was made for EMS. So in reality, it'll take at least an hour for them to get to the hospital. As opposed to the hour and a half, 2 hours that it may have taken by the time they stabilized them at the scene and moved them just by regular ambulance service. Fillmore County has a group that reviews every fatal crash. It's called the Toward Zero Death Safe Communities, TZD, or female coming on site. Review every fatal crash to try to determine what happened. And most often it's not something that was caused by the road being faulty or not being enough signs. Most often that's caused by people and their behavior that caused the crash. Right now what we know is the majority of the crashes in Fillmore County involve people running off the road. Part of that is because we have some narrow places to drive. Part of it is bluff. Most often though it's people driving way too fast when they're supposed to be driving at the recommended speeds. Like I mentioned before, about 50% of those child fly if you'll give it to an aunt. There's only one person on the helicopter, and that was Linnea. Johanna is in the back of the ambulance. If you have the DWI and it doesn't involve a crash, that is 1 year potential jail time, plus a $3,000 fine, plus the insurance costs that I mentioned earlier. The other piece of it is if you have a felony on your record, it's a young person that can impair your ability to receive financial aid. It impairs your ability to be able to find work, to vote, to use a gun. Many of those privileges get revoked. I'm going to leave here with the ambulance pretty soon. Typically, also with a crash, they're going to exchange their equipment back to make sure that they have all of the things that they share. Neil one has their own equipment, the local ambulance has their own equipment. You need to make sure that they are able to use that equipment if someone else makes a call. You never know when someone's going to make a call. In Minnesota, we have a fatal crash almost one every day. Our goal is is to try to get that to be 0, because 0 is only what seems acceptable. If I ask you how many people do you want to die in your family due to a traffic crash, I hope your answer is 0. I can't imagine any of you ever wanting that to happen. I can't imagine any of your parents ever wanting to have law enforcement knock on their door in the middle of the night saying your son or daughter's been killed in a traffic crash. You have to think about the things that happen to you that also happen to everyone else who's still alive. The moms, the dads, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles, all of your classmates. Just for something that can so easily be prevented by doing the good things, the right things, the things you know to do already. This is supposed to be a very happy time for you in your life. Lots of good experience, lots of fun things to do. It's not supposed to be something that ends like this. Or the start of your adult life starts with this. Tomorrow you have prom. Those are good to go. It's kind of a cautionary tale for tomorrow. The things you choose today affect tomorrow. Everyone around you cares about you, loves you, wants to see you do well, wants to be with you, church, your workplace, your employee, or someone. They all want to see you do well. The only one that's a barrier to that is probably you, or the choices you make by the people that you hang out with if you don't say no. He put his seatbelt on, which is a state law. It's required. You don't put it on, $125 ticket.
Everyone please rise. The District Court of the 3rd Judicial District, County of Fillmore, State of Minnesota, is now open. Judge Robert R. Benson is presiding. Please be seated. This is the case of the State of Minnesota versus Eric Peterson.
Counsel, prepare to proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Eric Peterson, while operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol, lost control of his car and rolled it, which resulted in a fatality as well as serious injuries to other occupants that were in his vehicle at that time. Your Honor, the state calls Linnea Thiss to the stand.
acknowledgement, please?
Yes.
All right, Lene, on May 10th at approximately 7 p.m., were you in a vehicle traveling west on County Road 8 out of Lanesboro?
Yes.
Who were the occupants of the vehicle?
Eric Peterson, Johanna Bierson, Sydney Johnson, and myself, Lanesboro.
Thank you. Prior to getting into the vehicle, what had you and others been doing?
We were just hanging out at my house, and we decided that we wanted to go up to Rochester.
While in the vehicle stated, were you involved in a rollover?
Yes.
Did you sustain any injuries?
Yes, I sustained a neck injury and am now paralyzed.
Was anyone else hurt?
Yes, Johanna broke her arm and Sydney is deceased.
Thank you. Were you driving the vehicle?
No,
Who was driving?
Eric Peterson.
And so is that individual in this courtroom?
Yes.
Could you point him out? Let the record show that the witness has identified the defendant, Eric Peterson.
Record will so reflect.
Could you describe what was happening in the vehicle just prior to the crash?
Well, Eric was driving. I think he was texting and he may have been drinking.
Miss This, how old are you?
18.
Would you say that Mr. Peterson is approximately the same age as you?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation.
Sustained, the witness need not answer.
Is he also still in high school?
Objection. Foundation.
Sustained, witness need not answer.
Miss This, what is the legal age to drink in the state of Minnesota?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation and relevance.
Sustained on both grounds, the witness need not answer.
According to the law, you cannot legally drink in the state of Minnesota. Is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Sustained.
Were you drinking prior to entering the vehicle?
Yes.
I remind you that you are under oath. The rest of your testimony, you can be charged with perjury for not telling the truth. Were you drinking in the car?
Yes.
Had Mr. Peterson been drinking?
I believe so.
Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Had Mr. Peterson been drinking in the car?
Yes.
Yes. I have no further questions for this witness.
Defense have any questions for the witness?
Defense has no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness is excused.
Your Honor, the state calls Johanna Bierson to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you affirm the information you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief? Please be seated.
On May 10th at approximately 7 p.m., were you in a vehicle traveling west on County Road 8 out of Lanesboro?
Yes.
Okay, who were the occupants of that vehicle?
Myself, Eric Peterson, Lanesboro, and Sydney Johnson.
So there were 4 of you. Prior to getting into that vehicle, what had you and others been doing?
We were just hanging out at Linnea's house, trying to find something to do. Decided to go to Roch.
Okay. While in the vehicle stated, were you involved in a rollover?
Yes.
Did you sustain any injuries?
I broke my left arm and I had a couple scratches.
Was anyone else hurt?
Yes. Sydney Johnson is now deceased and Laneathis is paralyzed from the waist down.
Were you driving the vehicle?
No.
Who was driving?
Eric Peterson.
Is that individual in this courtroom? And could you point that person out for me? Again, let the record show that this witness has identified the defendant, Mr. Eric Peterson.
Record will so reflect.
Could you describe what was happening just prior to the crash inside the vehicle?
We were all just having a good time on the way to Roch, and all of a sudden Eric lost control and we were flipped, and I'm pretty sure he was texting at the time.
Ms. Pearson, how old are you?
18.
Ms. Pearson, what is the legal age to drink in the state of Minnesota?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
According to the law, you cannot legally drink in the state of Minnesota. Is that correct?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. Witness need not answer.
Were you drinking prior to entering the vehicle?
Yes.
I remind you that you're under oath and may be charged for not telling the truth. Were you drinking in the car?
Yes.
Had Mr. Peterson been drinking?
I believe so.
Had Mr. Peterson been drinking in the car?
Yes.
I have no more questions at this time, Your Honor.
Defendant have any questions for this witness?
Defense has no further questions.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step down.
If I may, Your Honor, the state calls Officer Jesse Grabow to the stand.
Officer, do you affirm that the information about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief? I do. Please be seated.
On May 10th, were you called to the scene of a crash on County Road 8?
Yes, I was.
Could you describe for the court the scene upon your arrival?
It was a one vehicle rollover. There was open containers there was 2 victims in the car and 2 people that were ejected.
In your investigation, were you able to determine what took place in the accident?
The driver failed to negotiate a curve and rolled it at least once.
Were you able to determine the driver of the vehicle?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
Is that individual in the courtroom?
Yes.
Could you point to that individual?
The person seated to the right of the defense attorney.
Okay, let the record show that Officer Grabow has pointed out the defendant, Eric Peterson.
Record may so reflect.
Officer, what is the legal drinking age in the state of Minnesota?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Sustained. Witness need not answer.
Did you ask the defendant for his driver's license?
Yes.
According to his license, what is Eric's age?
18.
Did you suspect that the driver of the accident was driving while intoxicated?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading the witness.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
Did you ask Eric if he was drinking?
Yes.
What was his answer?
He stated that he had 3 or 4 beers.
Did you find any physical evidence that indicated the alcohol was involved?
Yes, we found several open containers of beer and a bottle of wine.
And this right here
Yes.
as exhibits of evidence found at the crash scene.
Yes.
Did you do any tests then to determine his level of intoxication?
I did. I performed field sobriety tests on Mr. Peterson.
Okay. Did you, or what were those results then?
He failed the field sobriety test and then was placed under arrest. And then we went to the jail and did a breath test. And the result of the breath test was a .18.
Okay, so Eric's level definitely was above the legal limit.
Yes.
As a law enforcement officer, is it your professional opinion that the alcohol consumed by Eric would affect his ability to operate his vehicle in a safe manner?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation.
Oh, the officer has the necessary training. The objection is overruled. Officer may answer.
Yes, alcohol was a contributing factor to the accident.
Thank you. Officer Grabow, again, in your professional opinion, was the alcohol...
This is a province of the jury.
I'll sustain that objection.
No further questions this time, Your Honor.
Does the defense have any questions of this witness?
No questions for this witness.
Okay. Thank you, officer. You may step down. take rest?
Yes, Your Honor, the state does rest at this point.
Defendant wish to offer any evidence?
The defense calls Eric Peterson to the stand.
Sir, do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief? Please be seated.
Mr. Peterson, were you driving a vehicle west on County Road 8 at approximately 7 p.m. on the evening of May 10th, 2013?
Yes, I was.
Were you alone in the vehicle?
No.
Where were you going?
Up to Rochester.
Would you consider the people who were in the vehicle with you to be your friends?
Yes, I do.
When you got behind the wheel to drive yourself and your friends to the prom, did you feel that you were putting anyone's life in danger?
Not at the time, no.
Did you feel that you were in control of your actions at the time?
Yes.
Further questions, Your Honor.
Any questions by the state?
What were you doing before you drove your vehicle west on County Road 8 around 7 p.m. on the evening of May 10th, 2013?
We were just sitting at Linnea house.
Did you have anything to drink before you drove the vehicle west on County Road 8 that night?
Yes.
How much did you drink?
3 to 4 beers.
3 to 4 beers. When did you drink?
Before we left,
How fast were you driving right before the accident?
I don't remember.
No further questions.
Any further questions by defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Witness is excused.
Your Honor, before we proceed, Sidney Johnson's mother, Terry Johnson, and Linnea Thiss's parents, Kathy Thiss, are present to wish to make impact statements about the incident that had occurred. May they be permitted to speak at this time?
They can. I just point out that normally I would hear your summation first and have to make a determination as to guilt or not or acquittal. But I won't consider their testimony as evidence, but will simply consider it towards disposition when that's appropriate.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Do I speak to you, Judge Benson? Do I speak to you, or do I speak to Eric?
No, you have to address it to me.
I'm addressing you. Judge Benson, I came here today with a whole paper prepared to read to Eric, but I can't read it. It hurts too much. Eric, I want you to know, and I want the judge and the rest of the people here to know that all of our lives have been changed. Linnea's life has changed completely. It took her months to recover physically from the accident. She'll never recover completely. She didn't get to go to college when all the rest of her classmates went. She got a few phone calls, a few texts, a couple of cards, and a couple of visits, but that all stopped after a couple months. She sits home a lot now. All of her dreams are gone. We're working on that. We had to move into a different house because our house couldn't accommodate a wheelchair, so now we're on a one-level house. A little bit easier to live in for her. The insurance ran out. It's kind of expensive to pay for the medications and the physical therapy that she goes to. But we'll make do, as all the rest of us are going to make do too with the changes that have happened. I'm hoping, Judge Benson, that you're able to be kind with Eric. I know that he didn't do this on purpose, but I do want him to know that his actions have changed all of our lives. The The fact that he's acknowledged this has helped me to understand it and does allow me to forgive him for what happened. And I do wish him the best from our family. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Terry Johnson. I'm Sydney Johnson's mother, and I agree with everything that Kathy Fisk said this morning. What I prepared this morning is a message to Eric and to students, Sydney's classmates and friends, with just a summation about her life. I want her to be remembered and not forgotten. I know this is very difficult for me, but I know Sydney would want me to do my best here to get through this today, so bear with me, please. Mothers and daughters have a very special bond. From the moment Sydney was born, she was a true light in my life. Every day was a wonderful day because Sydney was a part of it. She was like any ordinary kid growing up, happy, energetic, inquisitive, demanding, stubborn, and loving. As Sydney matured and began to blossom into a young woman, her true beauty radiated. She believed in the truth, in making good choices, and being a good person and role model. She was well liked by those who knew her. This year, her senior year, Sydney had been doing well in school but wanted to do better. So she took a closer look at her grades, classes, and what she desired most. Since college was in her future, she buckled down with regard to her schoolwork, raised her grades, as well as her GPA even more. She found that anything is possible with a little extra effort. I was so proud of her. Sydney thoroughly enjoyed her senior class trip to Washington, D.C. last month. She took hundreds of pictures and reminisced with us when she got back about places she visited, things she saw, and experiences she would never forget. She was so excited to have gone on that trip. She was eagerly awaiting her graduation in June and could not wait to start the next phase in her life. She was planning to attend Winona State University with hopes of pursuing a physical therapy career. Sydney's passion was helping people and making a difference in their lives, and the career path she chose would provide her that opportunity. Even though she knew how much I would miss her when she left home, Sydney was ready to pursue her independence and find her way in this great big world. Sydney had dreams of becoming a wife and mother someday. Sadly, her dreams will not become a reality. I will never have the pleasure of watching as my little girl walks down the aisle, embracing her dad's arm as he gives her away. I will never be able to enjoy Sydney's children, my grandchildren. Her beautiful face will be visible only in pictures and memories from this point forward. This world will never know the true goodness and generous contributions Sydney could have made. In my world, Sydney will live on in her older sister and younger brother, who share visible resemblances, as well as many of Sydney's special qualities. All of us parents worry about how peer pressure can affect our children's decisions, and like most of you here today, I spoke to Sydney over and over again on the tragic effects of drinking and driving, texting and driving, or simply just making the choice to get into a vehicle with an irresponsible driver who makes bad decisions. I had hoped by repeating this message to Sydney again and again, she would always make good choices. The reality is that Sydney made 3 bad choices that fateful day. Her first bad choice was to partake in the consumption of alcoholic beverages, which is something she had never done before. Unfortunately, I won't have the opportunity to discuss this with her to find out why. Her second bad choice was to trust in her friend. How was she to know that he would text while driving? Her third bad choice, I believe, was thinking if she rode with him just this one time, knowing that he too had had a few drinks, it might be okay, because they weren't going very far. Moms worry way too much. And after one ride, she would make better choices. After that one ride, she would make better choices. After all, everyone gets a second chance to make a better decision. For Sydney, though, there are no second chances. Sydney will never graduate from high school or venture off to college like her classmates and friends. Sydney will never experience true love and all that goes with it. Sydney will never enjoy her wedding day or experience the joy and excitement of welcoming a child into this world. Her brother and sister will never have the opportunity to grow old with her while experiencing all that brothers and sisters do throughout a lifetime together. Her father and I will forever have an empty spot in our hearts that only parents can understand following the loss of a child who is loved so deeply. Yet, we will be thankful to the Lord every day for the rest of our lives for affording us the privilege of being Sydney's parents, if only for 18 short years. To Sydney's friends and classmates and fellow students, I plead with you to use her loss as a time to reflect upon your own decisions and choices. In any future situation you find yourself, please take a moment to think, are you making the best choice for you at that very moment? If you feel any hesitation or hear that nagging voice in your head telling you it may not be a good idea, listen to that voice. It just may save your life and give you all the opportunities that Sydney will never have a future. You can all learn from this catastrophic and heartbreaking tragedy. Vow to make better decisions. Be the voice to speak up when you witness a friend or acquaintance attempt to get behind the wheel of a car after drinking, or when they pick up a cell phone to make or receive a quick call or send or view a text message when driving. Inform them it's not okay and do something about it. We're blessed with only one life. Let's live it wisely. God bless the memory of my little girl, Sydney K. Johnson. Thank you.
State wish to give a final argument?
Yes, I do. In your honor, the state has proven beyond all reasonable doubt that the defendant, Mr. Peterson, while driving his vehicle, lost control and rolled his vehicle. The state has also shown that the time that Mr. Peterson was under influence of alcohol and his blood alcohol content was 0.18, which is above the legal limit. Your honor, there can be no doubt that Mr. Peterson's condition was a factor in causing this tragic event, which left one person dead and another paralyzed. Mr. Peterson's decision to drink and drive will affect the families of all the victims, and especially Miss Johnson's family, forever. Having to bury a child is the worst parent's nightmare. The Johnson family will forever be denied the joys that come from watching Sydney grow through all the life events, including high school graduation. People say that time heals all wounds, but time can never heal the wound left by the loss of a child. Furthermore, Miss This injuries are permanent and will certainly influence her quality of life. She will never again walk again, a high price to pay for someone else's decision. Your honor, it is the court's responsibility to hold those who break the laws of the state of Minnesota accountable for their actions. In this case, not only was the law broken, but extreme harm was done by the defendant. The state cannot bring Sydney Johnson back. The state cannot repair the injury that Miss This has suffered, but the state can hold the defendant, Mr. Peterson, accountable. The state is asking that the defendant be found guilty of driving while under the influence, one count of vehicular homicide, and causing serious bodily injury while operating a vehicle. The state is asking that Mr. Peterson be given the maximum penalty allowed by the law. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Does counsel wish to give a closing statement? Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, this case is different from many of the cases you've seen before. Here we have a defendant with no criminal history. We have a defendant who has been a model citizen and has potential to achieve many things in his life. However, his potential may be impacted by what happened on May 10th, 2013. The defendant will be the first to admit that he made a terrible mistake by driving himself and his friends while he was under the influence of alcohol and losing control of his vehicle. The defendant will have to live with this every day, knowing that with his mistake he killed his friend Sydney Johnson and paralyzed his other friend Lene at this. This is a strong punishment in itself, Your Honor. Therefore, we are asking leniency when you sentence the defendant.
Thank you, counsel. Defendant has the right of allocution. Does the defendant wish to say anything?
I know my apologies won't bring Linnea's legs back or Sydney's life back, but I'm so deeply sorry.
Thank you. All right, the court has heard all of the evidence which has been presented. I note that Minnesota law requires for a conviction that you have operated a motor vehicle in a grossly negligent manner. In this case, the courts received testimony that you had a blood alcohol level of 0.18, which is more than twice the legal limit. In addition, the court received testimony that in fact you were texting at some point shortly before the accident, and again that indicates that you were operating in a grossly negligent manner. The combination of the two leaves me no choice, frankly, other than finding you guilty of criminal vehicular homicide, one count. Court also finds you guilty of one count of criminal vehicular injury. The charge of driving while impaired, or the DUI, becomes merged into the finding of the criminal vehicular homicide. Your attorney tells me, sir, that this is different than many of the cases I see because you have no criminal history and because otherwise you're a good person who made a dumb and or bad mistake. I tell you that 90% of the people that I see in criminal court are basically good people that did something really dumb, that either caused damage or hurt to somebody else, but in any case violated our laws. So you are no different than 90% of the people I see. I can acknowledge that you're a good person. But what you did was so grossly negligent and so changed the lives of 3 families, including yours, in ways that cannot be in any way recovered. A judge in trying to sentence has to try and craft a sentence that does several different things. One is to make sure the sentence carries enough sanction so that you won't commit a similar crime again. Second, the sentence has to be one that sends a clear message to the rest of the community saying this is a type of behavior that cannot be tolerated, and if in fact it's engaged in, society needs to know that there will be harsh consequences for conviction of that. And finally is the issue of retribution. One of the parents here spoke well of you, even though your actions caused a severe and irreparable injury to them. So, on the charge of criminal vehicular homicide, I sentence you to 120 months in the state prison. You must serve at least 2/3 of that 10 years before you're eligible for supervised release. I also levy a fine on you for that charge of $5,000. And in addition thereto, I understand that the families of the deceased and of the injured will be submitting what we call statutory affidavits for restitution. And when I receive them, I will order that you pay back all of the amounts that they have expended for the care of the other injured. That will be a burden on you for at least 20 years. And anytime you make any money, some of that money is going to be taken to give the restitution. On the charge of criminal vehicular injury, I sentence you to serve a period of 60 months in the state prison, and also levy a fine of $3,000 and again require restitution. The sentences shall be served concurrently. I also order that you undergo DNA analysis as a part of Minnesota law, and your DNA record will be maintained by the State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for all time. You know, had you done either one of these things, you would have been found guilty by this court. If the matter was only that you were texting, that would have been sufficient to find you guilty of criminal liquor, homicide, and injury. If you were just drinking, I still would have found you guilty had you not been texting. When you drive a motor vehicle, sir, you're behind one of the most dangerous instruments that we have in our society. And when it's misused, somebody dies, somebody is injured. You have, I'm going to point out a little bit on texting. Texting, the average reading or sending a short text takes about 4.6 seconds. That's 4.6 seconds that you're not paying attention to what you're doing, which is trying to drive a motor vehicle. In 4.6 seconds, at 55 miles an hour, you will go the length of a football field without paying attention to trying to control that motor vehicle. We know that the severity of accidents which occur because of those types of distracted drivings gives us a severity which is 23% worse than all others. We know that now about 3,500 people are dying every year. You caused one of those deaths as a result of not paying attention to your driving. I feel bad for you in many ways. This court doesn't enjoy sending people to prison, but I think the message has to get out that what you did is so negligent that people have to understand there will be severe consequences if you cause a death doing it. I hope you learned something during that period of time you're in the hands of the Commissioner of Corrections, and I hope when you get out that you make some sort of a life for yourself. I know and understand that you're going to be missing that part of life where you would be reaching your full maturation, but that's your fault, and I can't change that. All right, this hearing is concluded. I remand the defendant to the custody of the Fillmore County Sheriff for transfer to the Commissioner of Corrections. Do any of the students that are here have any questions that I can answer or try to answer? Okay. I don't see any. Unfortunately, I see these kind of cases in real life, and it's a really sad thing. I know you guys got a prom coming up and everything doing it. Don't do what you know you shouldn't be doing. I don't want to have to read about anybody losing their life or getting seriously injured. So enjoy yourselves. You can enjoy yourselves without putting yourself in a situation where you're going to get hurt or somebody else is going to get hurt. Okay? So I hope you enjoy your prom. Court is in recess.